Liam Mercer had spent enough nights staring into the cold glow of orbital data screens to know the difference between system noise and something that shouldn't exist. At 2:14 a.m., the Faulkner Orbital Station's Deep Space Array registered a distortion so precise it almost felt intentional. It wasn't random interference or cosmic radiation noise, it was structured, repeating, and expanding in perfect mathematical consistency. At first, Liam thought it was a calibration error, but then every independent satellite feed aligned on the same impossible object, a planetary mass forming just beyond the Moon's orbit. The readings weren't just unusual, they were contradictory to every known law of orbital physics. And yet, there it was. Something the size of Earth, appearing where emptiness had always been absolute. Liam called it in as a priority anomaly, but deep down, he already knew this wasn't a malfunction. It was the beginning of something the system was never designed to recognize. Professor Nadia Solano arrived at Faulkner Station 12 hours later, her presence calm in a room that was slowly losing its sense of scientific certainty. She studied Liam's data without speaking for several minutes, her silence heavier than any explanation she could have given. When she finally spoke, her words didn't bring comfort. The object was not entering orbit, she said, it was assembling itself in real time, as though space was reconstructing a forgotten blueprint. What disturbed her most was the structure, continents, oceans, atmospheric patterns, all forming in near-perfect correspondence to Earth, but slightly misaligned, like a reflection learning how to imitate reality without fully understanding it. Liam watched the projection shift on the holographic display, feeling an uneasy recognition grow in his chest. It wasn't just another planet forming. It was Earth repeating itself incorrectly. By the third day, the phenomenon stopped being distant and started becoming invasive. Satellite networks across multiple nations began failing without explanation, dropping offline in clusters that formed an eerie geometric pattern when mapped together. Communications infrastructure followed, with blackout zones expanding like shadows cast from an unseen source. Governments attempted to isolate the anomaly, but nothing could be targeted. There was no mass signature to lock onto, no stable gravitational center to calculate trajectory. It was as if the duplicate Earth existed slightly outside the rules of physical interaction. Liam noticed something even more disturbing. Every time the duplicate Earth became clearer in satellite imagery, Earth's own sensors degraded further, as though reality itself was losing resolution. Nadia began calling it the compression effect, but neither of them said what they were truly thinking. That one Earth might be overwriting the other. Nadia's theory changed everything, not because it was comforting, but because it was worse than any alternative. She suggested that the duplicate Earth was not being formed by matter or energy, but by observation itself. The act of monitoring deep space might have triggered a feedback loop in the fabric of reality, causing existence to replicate what it was being forced to define. Liam tested the idea by restricting data inputs, limiting observation windows, and even isolating sensor arrays from active interpretation. For a brief moment, the duplicate Earth destabilized, its surface flickering between coherent and fragmented states. But then it adapted. It responded. The structure stabilized again, stronger than before, as if it had learned how to survive being watched. That was when Liam realized the horrifying implication: if observation shaped it, then humanity wasn't just discovering it. They were building it. The first confirmed loss came from orbital satellite KN9, stationed on the outer detection ring. It transmitted a final burst of corrupted imagery before vanishing entirely from tracking systems. The image it sent showed something that made even experienced engineers stop speaking for several seconds: the duplicate Earth, but with inverted continental formations glowing faintly beneath its surface, like a second map buried under the first. Moments later, all telemetry ceased. No debris, no orbital decay signature, no collision event. Just absence. The satellite did not fall. It did not explode. It was simply no longer recorded as part of reality. Nadia stopped calling it an anomaly after that. She started calling it a breach. By the sixth phase of the event, the duplicate Earth was no longer silent. It began emitting structured signals, patterns that repeated across multiple frequencies, too ordered to be natural but too complex to be artificial in any conventional sense. Liam and Nadia worked together to decode fragments of the transmissions, only to realize the patterns resembled early human communication protocols, as if something was attempting to speak in a language derived from observation of Earth itself. Worse still, the signals were not one-way. They were responsive. Every attempt to analyze them altered their structure, as though the duplicate Earth was adjusting its communication in real time based on being studied. Nadia stopped mid-analysis once and said quietly that it wasn't sending messages. It was having a conversation. And humanity had just been identified as the other participant. On the 73rd day, every active satellite in orbit simultaneously aligned toward the duplicate Earth without command or external input. Ground stations registered synchronized system behavior across continents, all pointing to a single fixed observation frame. Liam stood inside the observation deck as both planets appeared in near-perfect visual alignment, suspended like mirrored identities sharing the same existence. Then the duplicate Earth shifted. Beneath its surface, structures that had never been visible before began to surface, massive, layered formations moving in patterns that did not resemble geology, but intention. Nadia's voice broke the silence, barely audible, as she realized what they were witnessing. It was not forming anymore. It was waking. And in the final moment before all feeds cut out simultaneously, Liam understood the most terrifying truth of all, not that Earth had been duplicated, but that the duplicate had been waiting for the moment it was fully seen.